Hi, I'm John Little, and this is the ShockCast, broadcasting from a warm Taipei evening on Saturday, September 22nd, 2018. Before getting started today, let me remind you to watch or listen to this week's YouTube playlist. You can find it in the playlist section of this channel, in the comment section below, or at the end of this video. Those are the best 10 videos of this past week, and I'm sure that you'll enjoy them as much as I did. Now, let's begin today's program. Big changes. Change is a constant. The only variable seems to be how much change and what direction, and most people don't factor in how things change when attempting to predict the future. This seems like a strange statement, but looking at the past and the predictions that many made in the past, it's clear that very few, if any, have been able to predict the conditions in which we now live. Even our view of the past changes based upon our view of the present. They change. Oh, and the changes that we currently experience are about to accelerate quickly. I hate change with a passion. I hate moving. I hate changing how I work. I hate changes to schedules. I guess that you might think of me as hateful. In fact, one motto that you might want to attribute to me is death to change. Of course, that's not universally true. I've been known to change the ice cream that I eat, but don't tell anyone. Well, change was forced upon me a couple weeks ago when Firefox changed one small way in how it records bookmarks. For me, it was like a bomb had gone off in how I work. The only reason why I used Firefox was that one little field called description. I had a whole work process woven around that little field, and now it's gone. Did I mention that I hate change? Like I said, it was like a bomb had exploded, and now I have to pick up the pieces of my shattered workflow. Someone once wrote thanking my staff for all the work that they were doing, not realizing it was just me and my optimized workflow. Well, that workflow is no more, but it's a good thing. Why? Because it forced me to come to terms with a lot of things that I had been neglecting, like the website. It needed new code. New formatting, new everything. What you actually see at omegashock.com is only a small part of the changes that have happened over the past few days. There's better security. There's better spam protection. CAPTCHA is gone, although it might come back. The site is getting a lot of attacks. The site is faster. The theme has been replaced. It is now more optimized for search engines, but all that doesn't change my workflow problem. Something needs to be done, and soon, to change how I work. If not, I shall eventually turn into a puddle on the floor as I seek to do the impossible. So rest assured, there are changes still to come. Lots of them. In fact, this is an opportunity for your input. What changes would you like for Megashock and some guy named John Little? And no, the hair is not going to change. It's white, and I like it that way. But think of the best way forward for a Megashock. I certainly will be doing the same. However, I also had a chance to look back on the past 7 years of this website, and when Mangled Man said, "I guess I remain uneducated on the significance of Building 7." That was in response to last week's discussion about 9/11 and, of course, one of the most important topics of discussion when talking about 9/11, which is what happened to World Trade Center Building 7. Well, Mangled Man's comment made me realize that I wasn't quite sure when I myself realized how important World Trade Center Building 7 was. So I went digging, and in the process realized how much this website had changed, and especially myself. From that hysterical beginning on April 5th, 2011, and then the launch of the website in August of that year, my understanding of the world has changed drastically, in ways that I could never have imagined 7 years ago. It's as if bombs have been going off in my head for 7 years. It's a wonder that it's still together. And some of you are responsible for some of those bombs. Some of the simplest questions have led to some real revelations. And no, I don't like having my life turned upside down by these revelations. However, I love the truth, so I do my best to embrace these things. Partly because the future is impossibly grim. I kid you not. 1 billion people will die in the not-so-distant future, and many of those who survive will wish that they hadn't. That thought alone is enough to spur me onto more and more change over the coming weeks and months. I may have to get on Twitter and Facebook. I might need to break up my writing into smaller pieces. I might actually need to do less writing while increasing the focus of what I write. So pray for me and for the direction of this site, Omega Shock, and of course the YouTube channel that you may or may not be listening to. And while you're praying, pray for all of us. The future is grim, but there is opportunity to serve God and be blessed by God in the midst of what is coming. So really, prayer is really what we really need and should do. After all, this ministry is a Luke 21:36 ministry, in which Jesus calls us to watch and to pray that we would be found worthy to escape these things that are coming. Now, let's get to the next important part of the ShockCast, the news and analysis from this past week. But before going on, take a moment to click the subscribe button below and hit that bell to be notified when the next ShockCast happens. Those of you listening via MP3, make sure that you are subscribed to the Shock Letter at theshockletter.com. And there's an important reason to be subscribed to the Shock Letter, since I usually do not have the time on the ShockCast to talk about more than just a quarter of the news that I analyze at Omega Shock and the Shock Letter. So subscribe to the Shock Letter and get all the news and links that I analyze for free. In fact, everyone should sign up for the Shock Letter. Subscribing and unsubscribing is simple and easy, and there's no way that I would ever share the subscription list with anyone. Period. I'm not in this for the money and never will be. Now, over this past week, let me talk about 10 articles and videos that I found especially important. The first one is Deep State Unmasked, State Department on Hidden Cam, Resist Everything, I Have Nothing to Lose, from Project Veritas. And I must tell you that I was very enthusiastic about what James OKeefe was doing here. He does it again, and I was yelling, yes, 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 and yes, ongoing. And his first target was the State Department, or Department of State. Those people have been corrupt for so long that I've had to, well, it just had to have been an easy first target. And I've watched their foul and evil corruption from Jerusalem for 15 years, and this corruption has been going on for decades, probably even from its foundation. My hope is that James OKeefe keeps pushing hard to take down the U.S. Department of State. They have been a cancer on the face of America for too long. The State Department has been a problem. However, there's more to the deep state than the State Department, and unfortunately, I suspect they're going to kill James OKeefe one of these days, just like they're trying to kill Tommy Robinson. In fact, they are both very similar in the sense that they are both little people taking on the whole rotten edifice of government. They are both doing the best that they know how, and they are getting results. Will it be enough? I truly hope so, but I believe that the Bible says that they will ultimately fail. But if they are to succeed, they will need your help. Oh, and I understand how Stuart Carafa, which was the first video in the series by Project Veritas, I know how he could get away with so much at his State Department job. He's a government employee. I used to work for the government too. Very few government employees actually work very hard. Some do, most don't. My job in the government was soul-destroying. It made me want to flee to some island in the Pacific. But God released me from that ordeal by sending me and Mrs. Little to Israel for 9 months, and then to some island in the Pacific called Taiwan. Oh, and James O'Keefe knows how to drop truth bombs. He starts small, he gets the little fish, and works his way up the food chain. And how did he get his introduction to the deep state? Through the Democratic Socialists of America, or DSA. That's right, the socialists. His people infiltrated the DSA and got introductions to people in the deep state. And yes, the deep state is, or at least one branch is, socialist. There's probably, and I suspect actually most certainly, more factions of the deep state out there that are not socialist. But we'll have to see. And also, James is moving fast. He must have a lot of material to be releasing this much so quickly, and it's very professionally produced. So O'Keefe must have some deep pockets for this project. Big kudos for those who gave O'Keefe the funds that he needed to pull this off. If I wore a hat, it would be off in your honor. Those of you that have given money to James O'Keefe, well done. The next one is from RT World News. Generation being born now is the last to be free. Julian Assange in his last interview before blackout. This is an interesting and troubling discussion of our dystopian future. Those of you who grew up before the internet, you are the truly last free human beings on the planet. Those who grow up now will be, should the Lord tarry, the least free human beings to have ever lived. In fact, the only thing that will truly free us is, if my predictions about peak oil are true, is peak oil. Only then will we have a chance at freedom, even though our existence will be fraught with peril. We are moving into the darkest days of mankind. It will be the deadliest, most horrific time in history, in the history of the world. And when you think that, and just when you think it can't get any worse, well, trust me, it will. This is why I consider this a Luke 21:36 ministry. My goal is to help you watch and pray that you would be worthy to escape these things that are coming. Escape starts with being worthy. Are you? If you suspect not, or even if you are, please continue watching and pray that you would be found worthy to escape these things that are coming to pass. Now for the third one is an article about China's chilling social credit system, and it's straight out of dystopian sci-fi, and it's already switched on. TL2 shared this in the comments section from last week, and it's rather profound. Here is the chillingest quote from this article. Quote, according to China's Communist Party, the system will allow the trustworthy to roam freely under heaven while making it hard for the discredited to take a single step. Close quote. What does that sound like? Yeah, mark of the beast. But you'll notice that the Chinese government doesn't need to put a mark on anyone. So what's the difference? Why would the Antichrist need a mark on everyone? Remember that this is about worship, the worship of the beast. And no, this mark will not be an implant. Implants are not necessary to control populations, and implants are hackable. Anything that broadcasts information can be duplicated or even hacked. The beast system would never trust an implant for those very reasons. And like I said, they don't need implants to track you. China doesn't, otherwise they would require them. What scares me is that when I look around me, no society in the world today is ready to give up its sovereignty and worship a figurehead like the beast. Can you point to a single society today that is ready for such a thing? Can you? I've traveled the world and I cannot see a single society ready to do this. But Revelation speaks of the entire world doing this. Everyone. So why does that fact scare me? Because the only way to get everyone to agree on something like this would be a global catastrophe of such horrifying proportions that people will beg for someone to save them, would give anything, including their freedom, to save them. And it would have to be a catastrophe bigger than anything since the flood. Think long and hard about that and think about what catastrophe that could be. And then ask if the Bible talks about such a catastrophe. And yes, I believe the Bible does talk about such a catastrophe. I called it Ezekiel's fire, and I wrote a book describing it. You need to be ready for this. You really do. And you can see a link to that book down in the comment section below of this video. And thanks TL2 for sharing that link. Now, in this one, the next one is Apple gives you a trust rating, and it's based on your phone call and email habits. Add this to the previous. Apple is doing this because they are tired of losing money to fraud. Dirtbags are stealing from them, and they want it to stop. The only way that they know how to make it stop is to institute these trust ratings. This is what happens when you have a dishonest and dishonorable society. When there are no values, you get repression. If you want to find out who is causing the rise of the beast, look around you and ask yourself, how many of the people you see would you trust to be absolutely honest? I can tell you that in most developed countries, you can trust very, very few people to be honest when it counts. Please remember that Apple is less worried about the less developed countries. They don't buy that many iPhones, and you are the people that buy iPhones. And you, in the US, Europe, Australia, etc., are the people who buy iPhones. You, not them. Now, do you understand why I like less developed countries than the place of my birth, the United States? I am so disgusted and revolted at this, I can barely stand it. If America and Europeans had been honest and decent, none of this would be happening. We did it to ourselves, and we deserve the repression and tyranny that comes with it. When God returns and destroys this world and kills almost everyone in it, it will be because we richly deserve it. The only survivors will be children, and they will have a chance at a better life than the foul and revolting future that we are creating. And yes, I do know that we will survive, that those of us who survive until the Lord comes, we will escape in the rapture. But those that are left behind, well, the Lord will use them, the children, those that do not and could not receive the mark of the beast. God will use them to rebuild society in what we call the millennium. Now comes a Zero Hedge article, and it's Trump weighs in on the single worst mistake in American history. And I was surprised. Trump actually said that, and he's right. Yes, there were some horrifying decisions in the past. I know those, and some of those might actually be worse than even you think. But the destruction of Saddam Hussein's Iraq has unleashed the Shiites on the Middle East, and that will lead to Ezekiel's fire and the death of 1 billion people. And yes, a lot of the dead will be in the United States. Saddam Hussein's Iraq was a bulwark against Iran and the Shiites, and George Bush destroyed that bulwark. They should have invaded Iran instead of Iraq, or just stuck with the invasion of Afghanistan. And no, I don't think that the morons that decided to do this were intending to leave Iran in control of the Middle East, although it's possible that this might have been their intention, to keep the Saudis dependent upon the U.S. All of this will end up destroying America, and George Bush will have been the author of this stupidity. Not the only one, but he would have been the one, the figurehead, the one who put his stamp and his signature upon this operation. How utterly stupid. This next one is a YouTube video, and it's Tommy Robinson and Ezra Levant, an uncut extended interview. This was a painful interview to watch and listen to. The pain and suffering that was inflicted upon this man is almost too much to listen to. You wouldn't do this to an animal, but they did this to him. What made it even worse was the knowledge that Tommy was not guilty. This is a man fighting for a whole generation of children. He's fighting not just for his own child, but he's fighting for all children everywhere, and they tried to break him for that. And just listen to the damage that he is still suffering. Look at his videos from the time before he was sent into prison, and compare what you hear here in this video. I'm amazed that the British government could do this to someone like Tommy. I am horrified that they knowingly tortured this man in the way that they did. In fact, I'm enraged at the foul evil of the British government. They know what they did. They know. And they want to finish the job that they started. If you are a British citizen, you need to hold your government accountable for this heinous evil. If you do nothing and say nothing, Tommy's blood will be upon your hands. You must do something to save and keep Tommy Robinson alive and fighting. For those of you who don't know what to do, you can do this. You can go to savetommy.com. That is SAVETOMMY.com, and contribute to his legal defense and for those who are fighting for him. You'll be able to do something there, but please don't stop there. Pick up the fight yourself. Do not let this evil go unanswered. Please, make your voice heard. The evil that is going on in the UK is beyond my ability. I don't have words to describe how awful it is. Please do your best. The next is the drive to sink Kavanagh is liberal totalitarianism. And this is about Brett Kavanagh, the Supreme Court nominee. If you want to understand the darkness in the heart of the left, you often need to look deep. Yes, a wide angle that takes in the breadth of their depravity is a good thing, but a wide angle doesn't touch the heart, the fear. And this article does an admirable job of showing us the reasons behind the frantic hysteria of the left and how corrupt they are. Here's a rather lengthy quote with the first two paragraphs of the article and then a quote from further down. Quote, "If Senate Democrats and their media allies manage to destroy Brett Kavanagh, they will bring America one step closer to a new liberal style of totalitarianism. I don't use the T word lightly. I've spent years pushing back against those who fling it about in free societies like ours. But totalitarianism doesn't require cartoonish 1984-style secret police and Big Brother. The classical definition is a society where everything, ethical norms and moral principles and truth itself, is subjugated to political ends." And then down into the rest of the quote from the rest of the article. Quote, "The question is, why have Republican high court nominations brought out the worst from the left, going back to the Ronald Reagan era? The short answer is that liberals fear their major cultural victories of the past half-century. Let me repeat that. The short answer is that liberals fear their major cultural victories of the past half-century are democratically illegitimate." That was a mouthful. Not a single one was won at the ballot box, going back to the Supreme Court's 1965 Griswold decision, which recognized a constitutional right to contraceptives. From abortion to gay marriage, plus a host of less titillating issues, modern liberalism has lived by the court, and liberals fear their cause will die by the court. Close quote. I keep wondering at how people like Dianne Feinstein can sleep at night. How can you be so foul and corrupt, yet holding yourself with such pride? There's not enough money in the world that would make me want to switch places with foul Dianne. I would rather die than do that. And I suspect that there are people that would love to help me die rather than switch places than Dianne Feinstein. Then there's this one from Sovereign Man. It is, Netherlands prosecutes its own citizen for calling Turkish dictator a goat effer. This belongs in the Gog and Magog section, but it also belongs in the moron section and the Matthew 24/7 section. But it's also an excellent article that speaks to the history of Europe that you probably aren't being taught. So I'm putting it where I put it in the shock letter. Why does this belong in the Gog and Magog section? Other than the fact that it deals with one of the members of the Gog and Magog alliance that will come down and attempt to destroy Israel, well, do you remember the bleating of the other countries? The bleating as in a sheep bleating? Ba. Does that ring a bell? Anyway, when Gog and Magog come down to destroy Israel, do you remember that sheep-like bleating? Right, bleating, as in a sheep. Here's an example of the kind of bleating that I'm talking about here. Quote, case in point, a few weeks ago, a government of the Netherlands charged and prosecuted one of its own citizens, a 64-year-old Dutchman from the town of Sittard near the German border, for sending angry emails to the president of Turkey. Apparently, he read them. You read that correctly. The Dutch government prosecuted a Dutch citizen living on Dutch soil because he insulted a foreign government official. Bear in mind that this foreign government official is Recep Erdogan, who has basically been dictator of Turkey since the early 2000s. When it comes to ruling with an iron fist, Erdogan makes Vladimir Putin look like a pathetic amateur. Erdogan has crushed his opposition, imprisoning 160,000 political opponents. He's tightened controls over the internet, heavily censored the media, corrupted the judiciary, suspended many individual freedoms, brutally squashed protests, and gradually taken more and more power for himself. So this Dutchman sent Erdogan several angry emails comparing him to Hitler and calling him a goat effer. And of course you know what I mean when I say goat effer. Well, Germany also did the same kind of thing when they arrested a comedian for making fun of goat oink Erdogan. Do you hear that? Yes, the bleating. Do you hear it? That's right, bleating. As in sheep bleating. The ba of sheep. A European kind of sick and twisted surrender to oink Erdogan, the ugliest man in Anatolia County. The surrender monkeys of Europe need a backbone. But I'm not sure where they're going to get it. Then there's this next one, and it's also about Turkey. Turkish strategy in northern Syria. Military operations, Turkish-backed groups, and the Idlib issue. I've been watching Turkey try to carve up Syria for months, actually years, and I only became aware of what Turkey was doing when I saw a map of ISIS-controlled areas of Syria right about this time 3 years ago. Of course, the name ISIS means nothing. There are many more names in this mess, but ISIS has a certain je ne sais quoi. It's that little extra bit of hysteria and ability to stay organized. So, ISIS. The important part that anyone and everyone should understand is that Turkey has been trying to conquer Syria for a very long time, and we have a name for this effort: Neo-Ottomanism. And the Turks are foul and evil in their efforts to massacre civilians and loot Syrian factories in their effort to create their empire. And if you want a good picture of what is coming, just look at the the link to the picture that I showed. And it's from southfront.org, and it shows Putin, the religious leader of Iran, Khamenei. Was it Khamenei or Ruhollah? Doesn't matter. Anyway, the leader of Iran, the leader of Russia, and Erdogan shaking hands in a nice big frameable photo. It's a big image, it's crisp and clear, and as I said, suitable for framing. That, my friends, is why the events in Syria are so important. It's a precursor for the coming of Gog and Magog and Ezekiel's fire, because it's uniting Russia, Turkey, and Iran. Syria will suffer the effects, but those three, Turkey, Iran, and Russia, well, they're going to create an alliance that will eventually come down and attempt to destroy Israel. Now for the last article. Turkish education. Same old religious obsession, only worse. If you want to know how Oink Erdogan is going to push Turkey into an alliance with Iran and other members of the Gog and Magog alliance, this is part of how he will do it, and this is just one little quote from this article. Quote, in 2017, Turkey stopped teaching evolution at secondary school. For extremist Muslims, Darwinism remains a taboo subject. Instead, school textbooks started teaching Turkish pupils jihad. Does that give you the shivers? Having Turkish schools teach jihad? It should, because it means that Ezekiel's fire is coming soon. Well, that's it for this week's ShockCast. I truly hope that you'll be ready for what is coming. A prudent man foreseeth the evil and hideth himself, but the simple pass on and are punished. Proverbs 22:3. If you find a flaw in my reasoning, have a question, or wish to add your own viewpoint, leave a comment on the Omega Shock website or in the comment section below. Omega Shock readers and ShockCast listeners leave awesome comments, and I value each and every one of them. Again, make sure that you are subscribed to the Shock Letter at theshockletter.com. In fact, everyone should sign up for the Shock Letter. It's free. Subscribing and unsubscribing is easy, and there's no way that I would ever share the subscription list with anyone. Period. You have my promise on that. For those of you on YouTube, hit that subscribe button and click the bell to get notifications. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. All of that helps you and me get the message out. And as this video ends, you'll see links that appear in boxes within this video. Those links will take you to other ShockCasts, a link to subscribe to the ShockCast, as well as a link to the playlist of the important videos of this past week. And you will see the links to that playlist in the comment section below. And so, allow me to close with this blessing from Numbers 6:24-26. Yevarechecha Yehovah Yeshmirecha. Ya'er Yehovah Panav Elecha Vichuneka. Yisa Yehovah Panav Elecha V'yasem Lecha Shalom. The Lord bless thee and keep thee. The Lord make his face shine upon thee and be gracious unto thee. The Lord lift up his countenance upon thee and give thee peace. Numbers 6:24-26. May your pastor give you the words that you need to continue walking the path that God calls you to follow. And Lord willing, I will see all of you next week.